How long are we staying out here?
I figure I'll sleep tonight and drive tomorrow all day, all night. Get us to Wyoming by next morning.
So can we start a fire? I'm freezing.
Now, why am I going to tell you no?
Because infected will see the smoke.
No, fungus isn't that smart. This is too remote for infected anyway.
People? So what are they going to do, rob us?
Well, they'll have way more in mind than that.
All right, Max, we're back with The Last of Us Episode 4. This is the second part of our take on that episode. Title is called Please Hold to My Hand. Did you ever look that up to see why it's called that?
Yeah, I still didn't, to be honest with you. I don't know why it was called that. It was just weird.
Well, we'll have to deal with it. Life goes on. Okay, so
I kind of forgot.
I'm treating this episode really. I've watched it a second time, take my notes, kind of see if there's some stuff that I missed, which there's a decent amount of stuff that I actually missed the first time watching it. I got some things wrong, but we'll go through it really fast before we jump into this episode. Thanks again to our Patreon producer, Knight Rider 169. With your help, it's much appreciated. Just remember, you too can help us out. If you head on over to patreon.com/Rot Your Brain Media.
Yes, sir.
I gotta learn that. I gotta do a better job of that. Just go in there. A couple bucks helps us out. Get us some coffee before we do one of these things. It'd be real nice. Appreciated. Yeah. So, Max, now that you've had some extra time to, you've watched it a second time. What's your take on it? Do you like it a little bit more?
I didn't hate the episode. It was just because of the way the first 3 episodes were. It was a little. I don't want to say step down, but it was just a little different, right?
Right.
Not in a bad way, because it was I think you mentioned it's a laying the foundation kind of episode for more things to come. So I didn't hate it. It was just a little different.
Yeah.
That's all.
I've been trying not to compare this show with The Walking Dead because it's such an easy thing to do. But this episode, I felt, gave me that most Walking Dead vibes out of all the other episodes.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing, because Walking Dead...
Great show.
I'm a huge fan of Walking Dead. And then the first, 3 or 4 seasons of Walking Dead were phenomenal storytelling as far as character development and stuff like that. I'm not saying they didn't have those later on, but the beginning of it was so much more focused.
Big time.
Yeah.
Me and my wife are still mourning Glenn's death. That's why we haven't watched past that episode.
We were, you and I were just talking about this maybe a week ago or two, that if Walking Dead actually aired on HBO as opposed to AMC, would it have gotten more love?
Oh, because they would have been able to, push the envelope a little bit more than they did in terms of language, death, and stuff like that. And they did a great job in there. Maybe, because, HBO adds a little extra flair,
it's the production quality, I think.
Definitely.
You could tell
bigger budgets.
Definitely
and stuff
bigger
like that,
budget.
right?
Yeah. The scenery adds to it so much, and really in Walking Dead, you didn't really get that atmosphere.
They wouldn't have given you as many episodes. HBO doesn't do, usually more than 10 episodes a show. So that would have probably taken away some, I don't want to call them filler episodes, but they were taking away some solid episodes in there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about this episode. So
before, I got a couple of let's say house cleaning and things from last episode. We had some great comments from the community. For example, there's actually a documentary on HBO on Linda Ronstadt called "The Sound of My Voice." One of our faithful listeners, Mark, sent us that information. So anybody who's interested in her work, that's a great documentary there. And then Mark actually brought up a really pretty good point too, about Bill, his cooking, right?
Right.
20 years later, after a pandemic, where is he getting all these great ingredients to cook this phenomenal food? Like, 20 years later, there's obviously no more farms, and it doesn't show that he was, cultivating or farming himself. Maybe some of the proteins he could hunt a rabbit here or there, but a lot of that stuff, how do you still have it 20 years later?
Well, I mean, they're growing food. I mean, we saw that they're really excited that they grew strawberries.
But that was the only thing they really showed. The
I'm
strawberries.
sure they're growing some more stuff. But the food thing, or the protein thing, that's actually a good point. And I'm pretty sure they never actually say if the fungus actually affects animals.
Now, you would think.
Now, maybe they have, and we have to look it up. I mean, we could try to do that maybe right now. There's probably maybe one person who's like a huge Last of Us diehard fan. It's like, oh my God, getting all mad. But yeah, I mean, if the fungus is actually affecting animals, what exactly would you want to eat? But I guess maybe because they're so far out, because then the fungus isn't affecting them. Because Joel actually does say to Ellie in one of these clips we're actually going to listen to that they're so far out they don't really have to worry about the fungus. They actually have to worry about people. But if the fungus are trying to survive because the climate's getting warmer, and so that's why they're going into the human bodies. So
maybe
why wouldn't they go into animals?
I don't think they're really messing with the animals, because if you remember the first episode, the neighbor's dog, I don't think the neighbors were trying to get to the dog. It was really just trying to move the fungus from people to people. So, right. I mean, maybe we can assume that they're not messing with the animals, because animals are different temperatures, obviously, than humans, and maybe that's their
Do you know what that temperature is?
Well, every animal has, I'm assuming, different body temperatures, right? Humans are usually in the high 90s, right?
Sure.
So, but
okay, so a normal body temperature for dogs is 101.0
so that's too hot.
102.5. Okay.
So that's way too hot. Unless they mutated again where they can handle a dog's anatomy, right? So, but that's just a dog. Look up a cow, a chicken, all those would be varying degrees of body heat. So maybe they're really focused on, hey, we're the type of fungus we are. We thrive in the human body, optimal temperature, and that's all they're looking to expand on.
Right.
They're not really looking past that. But definitely a good thing, and we'd love for them to maybe explain it in the show too, right? They can do it in passing, like on one of Ellie and Joel's walks, where she can be like, "How come there's not a bull chasing us with fungus in them?" And then Joel can be give his two take. But that was pretty interesting. Those are the kind of stuff I like getting from our listeners, because it just expands our conversation online and on Patreon. Getting everybody's comments there, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm actually really stuck on this whole animal
internal
temperature thing.
Now you're down the rabbit hole, huh?
I am. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Maybe we should dive back on this in another episode.
Yeah.
But yeah,
let's dive into this episode.
It says like normal temperature for mammals range between 97 to 104 Fahrenheit. So,
okay.
I mean, it's not to say that there aren't other animals that can actually, have the same internal temperature as a human.
Yeah. Makes sense now.
So I think we might revisit this conversation at some point.
Yeah.
But
can you imagine if they got into chicken and now we're dealing right now with like an egg issue, right? Eggs are like $8 a dozen or some places, right?
Right.
Can you imagine if now there was no chickens or at all? Because they're all fungus laden. That would be epic. Anyway.
Protein world would lose its mind.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into this episode.
Go ahead.
Okay. So we're now going to hit pretty sure we've already done some spoiler stuff, so let's just go ahead. All right, so the first we just listened to the camping trip with Joel and Ellie, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that was an important scene because it kind of shifts the focus away from
the infected.
And then, now we're going to worry about how society outside of the QZ is basically handling, the apocalypse, really.
Yeah.
And so he seems like he mentions to her that you don't have to worry about the fungus right now. We're kind of like, kind of far out there, not to worry about it, but worry about the people. She asks him if they're going to rob us.
Yeah.
And he says they're going to do more than that, really.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be her first glimpse as like what everybody else is doing out there. Because Joel's already seen this. Obviously, within the 20 years, he's been, the apocalypse, really, when he's having to leave the QZ, the stories that he kind of already told her or hasn't told her yet about Tommy, which we'll hear that later on.
Not only he's seen it, he might have been doing it.
Yeah, he might have been doing it.
He said that in when they got ambushed in Kansas City.
Right. Because she hasn't had any human contact with anybody outside of Tess, right? And Joel, since they left the QZ, right? It's all just been fungus. Like the infected,
Marlene,
right?
Before that, right? And her group of people.
Right, but I'm talking about outside the QZ.
That's it.
Yeah. So this is going to be her first time seeing.
She didn't get Bill and Frank.
And so that kind of sets I think that dialogue really sets up what the scene's going to be.
Yeah.
And, that's pretty interesting, but,
No, in these worlds, it's always people. We end up doing a lot worse than the issues in the environment. Because there's some people they pray for anarchy, they get out and they're able to be their true selves, and a lot of times it's a horrible self. And then there are people who are weak that are going to be like, you know what, I'd rather be with the crazies than be a victim of the crazies. That was part of. There was elements of that in Walking Dead we were talking about before, where there are people that join groups, out of like, remember the whole governor thing, right?
Yeah.
In Walking Dead, there were people part of groups because they rather be doing the harm than getting harmed. So
sure.
I think you'll find a group of people like that.
But then I think also, people might just think that's just the way you have to live now. Like that's the way you just have to get by.
Exactly.
There's no middle ground anymore. Like you just have to do what you can to survive. If that means you have to hurt somebody to get their food or get their land or whatever the case is, that's just what you do now.
Yeah.
Which is
because what's the other option? Fedra, right? You have Fedra, you have being a raider, a slaver, whatever, one of those crazy groups. And this episode we saw a third faction. You can be a rebellion and take over a city.
Right.
Let's see how that works out in the coming episode, right?
Well, so far, I mean, it looks like they're just becoming the new Fedra.
Yeah,
think about it.
Almost similar tactics, right?
Right. But okay, so I wanted to talk about that camping scene because I felt like it sets up the show, even though it's not the first scene in the show.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a good way to start.
It's a transition.
Episode. Yeah,
this whole episode is a transition and laying good groundwork.
Right.
For things to come. So
right. All right. So the next scene I want to talk about is really Ellie and Joel. It seems like they're starting to develop somewhat of a relationship. It seems obviously it's Ellie trying more than Joel, and so I'm going to play this scene right now. It's Ellie kind of just telling jokes to Joel. So Joel is siphoning gas. Yeah. And he just tried explaining to her like how siphoning actually works.
I'll give the true explanation after.
All right, after? Okay. Yeah. So then he just tells her to go, wait by the car or something like that. Or no, he tells her not to wander off. And so then she decides, okay, if I'm not going to wander off, then I'm going to tell you some bad jokes. So let's listen.
Okay. This is your fault then. It doesn't matter how much you push the envelope. It'll still be stationary. No pun intended. Volume 2 by Will Livingston. Volume 2. Look, you get it? 2? Like T-O-O? What did the mermaid wear to her math class? An algebra. Like algebra. I stayed up all night, wondering where the sun went. And then it dawned on me.
Feel free to wait in the truck.
Okay, but just know, you can't escape Will Livingston. He'll be back. There's nothing you can do to stop him.
Those jokes are horrible.
Oh man. Yeah. But they're really dad jokes.
Yeah, and little kid jokes, right?
I appreciate this scene because it shows that there's another side of her. At the same time, I can't, I keep going back to like the Ellie in the video game and like how she's perceived by me, and then how this Ellie is in the show. And I kind of figured it out. This Ellie's just a little bit just more annoying in a way, and it sucks to say, and I feel bad for saying it, but her delivery is just so much more annoying than the one in the game. One in the game is kind of innocent, like she doesn't really know what's kind of going on, but she still acts tough, and then she still wants to be, she's still a smart ass and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But the way it's delivered in the game is just much more, I don't know, like, I don't want to say cute.
So is it a combination of the dialogue and her delivery, or just the delivery?
I feel that's a problem. It's just the delivery, because a lot of the dialogue, even like when they're redoing the dialogue verbatim from the game, which they do a couple times in this episode, it's just the way it's given. I'm just like, man, it just bugs me. It's given to me in a more, like, I just find it annoying. I'm terribly sorry if nobody else does, if this bothers you that I feel this way. I'm still hoping that she grows on me, and it sucks because there's something else to live up to as far as that way that I perceived Ellie before. Yeah. And it's just, this one's just not quite there yet. Yeah. And then hopefully it'll get there.
Yeah, sorry. To me, it's just that she's just an annoying 14-year-old that's been sheltered, and that's just the character being annoying. How she's delivering it, I think the fact that she's pissing us both off means she's doing a great acting job, because she's really annoying.
But I didn't know, I guess that if that's what they're trying to do this time around, then yes, it's working. But I don't feel like they were, if that's what they were trying to do in the video game.
No, I think it's two different. Almost
that didn't work. It's
people.
Definitely two different. And
because I think they're really trying to make her kind of she's an annoying kid, and at first it's gonna bother him, but he's starting to I don't want to say like it, but she's growing on him.
Yeah, you can see that.
Because she cares. She obviously again, she loves things in the past, right? That's the character. She enjoys. She mentioned the Mortal Kombat and everything of the old world. She really gravitates to.
She's infatuated by it.
She's infatuated by it, but she's still annoying. Now, will she? It's gonna be fun to see that character arc. And when she's no longer annoying and, more, that's Ellie.
I hope it happens.
It will, but it might be a little slow. It might be a slow burn.
Yeah.
Now for the siphoning.
Okay, what do you got for siphoning?
The real important stuff if we're ever needing to siphon. So siphoning works because of gravity, right? Once you get gas flowing through the tube, it will naturally continue flowing as long as you keep the tube lower than the level of gas in the tank. Because of this, it's usually convenient to just put your gas can or receptacle on the ground under the tank. So basically, the air that you blow in, right, the pressure that goes in helps push the air that's in the tank to kind of go down. Gas goes up through the tube, back down into your receptacle.
Wait, hold on a second. So you blow air into the tube? You don't suck the air out? Or you don't suck into it?
I think at first you blow and then it comes out. Then you suck some out. And then once it starts coming out, because once some of the air is in there and you sucking out, it pulls. Once you taste that oil, let it go. Now you got a free flowing. It's very. I hope I explained that right. Maybe I didn't.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I've only tried to do it one time and I passed out.
But basically, it is gravity helping you along the way.
So Joel was kind of right.
He was somewhat. I think I explained it as well as he did.
I think you did too. Okay. So let's go to the next scene that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
So the next scene, we're going to get a little bit of a backstory about Tommy.
Yeah.
And then kind of even how he met Tess a little bit. So let's listen to the scene.
Tommy's what we used to call a joiner. Dreams of becoming a hero. So he enlists in the army right out of high school. A few months later, they ship him off to Desert Storm. That's what they called that war, it doesn't matter. Point is, being in the army didn't make him feel much like a hero. Cut to 12 years later, outbreak happens. He convinces me to join a group making their way up to Boston, which I did. Mostly to keep an eye on him, keep him alive. That's where we met Tess. And that whole crew, well, for what it was, it worked. And then Tommy meets Marlene. She talks me into joining the Fireflies. The same mistake he made when he was 18. He wants to save the world. Pipe dream, him, Fireflies, all of them. Delusional. Of course, last I heard, he quit the Fireflies too. So now he's on his own out there, and now I gotta go get him.
So I get two things from this scene.
Yeah.
So one thing I get is Joel on him being the protective big brother.
Yeah.
He feels like it's his responsibility to watch out for Tommy. And the other thing I get from this, when he's talking about the crew that he rolled with for a little bit when he met Tess, and it worked. Remember, he said it was working. He pauses. He says, "Oh, it was working."
Yeah.
So I wonder if they were doing some bad things.
Oh yeah.
Because Joel hints later on this episode that he was not always. He was on one side and on the other side when it came to somebody playing hurt. Like we see in this episode where the guy comes out, he's playing hurt, and then he knows that guy's faking, so he drives off, and she goes, "How did you know?" He says, "Well, I've been on the other side of that."
Yeah.
So obviously Joel's had to do some bad things to survive, kind of like what we just talked about a little bit with the Walking Dead stuff and everything like that. So
he did gain a reputation, right?
At the QZ?
Yeah, everybody had it. Remember the guy, what was his name? Was it Robert? Who was deathly afraid.
Yeah, Robert was afraid. Yeah.
You know, so he built over these 20 years a reputation of, you know, being able to hurt people and kind of being a shady, rough character.
Right. I thought that was kind of...
I'm totally with you on that. And I think, you know, most of his motivation on anything has been because of his brother, then Tess, and now Ellie.
Right.
Like I think Joel is just so hurt and angry, right?
Right.
You know, just Pedro Pascal does such a great job of this monologue. You can hear the anger and pain and frustration all in one when he's just talking about, you know, Tommy here, his, you know, about he joined the Fireflies. He said that was like really good. Like,
right.
I'm assuming that's probably why they broke up, their little gang. Probably because Tommy was like, I don't want to be doing this anymore. I want to go join the Fireflies and save the world. Yeah, maybe. And that's probably when Tess and Joel went on their own path, right? And started doing their smuggling only. That's how I'm looking at it. But Tommy is, you know, he's a great character in the game and in the show so far.
Yeah.
I know he's gonna play a bigger role moving forward. But that kind of person, there's a lot of people like that who just want to do right, serve. You know, they become police officers, firefighters, they're in the military. So they like that structure and they like helping people. So I think Joel is doing it selfishly and at the same time wanting, you know, to protect his brother, but he probably doesn't want to lose him like the way he lost his daughter. Right. You know, so he'll follow him wherever. He'll go and try to get the battery. To make sure the brother's okay because he doesn't want to go through that kind of loss.
Yeah. Well,
he would have nothing left.
You did bring up a good point because this is definitely what's different from now or from the show than the video game. Yeah. And we've talked about it before. You mentioned that every single thing that Joel's done has really been, you know, for family, for Tommy, for even for Tess, for the reason why he's continuing on his journey with Ellie. He doesn't care about her being, you know, immune, being a possible vaccine for the virus or anything like that. Every single thing you saw him do in Boston was to get a battery, to get to Tommy, to figure out if Tommy was okay. And it's like, all right, we're going to take this girl, bring her to this destination, then they'll give you the battery, or they'll give you a truck.
The truck,
with the battery.
With the battery, even better.
So you can go somewhere. And then things obviously don't happen the way they want to. Tess says, you know, finish it, you know, take her to, you know, Bill and Frank, and then you'll get your battery. All right, well, Tess told me to take you all this way here, and now you see the letter from Bill, you know, saying how we're the people that protect the ones that we love, blah, blah, whatever. Well, now I still got to get to Tommy. I don't know how I feel yet about Ellie, but I got to get my brother.
Exactly.
So
make sure he's okay.
Yeah. And so that's still the reason
all his
why.
Motivation.
But in the game, it's not, It doesn't start out that way.
No.
In the game, it's just we need to do this mission to get guns.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do with family or anything like that. Nothing to do with Tommy. Tommy's not even really mentioned. It's all about getting guns. And at some point, then it becomes about finishing this for Tess. And then it becomes about, oh, now I care about this, this person, regardless of if she's the vaccine or not. I still need to get her to this spot. So
it's the TV show's version will resonate better for people, family, rather than I'm doing it for guns. So that's one of those improvements that they said, the changes that they said, that makes it better because it makes it more real and more emotional.
But I mean, at the same time, I think something, even if it did start with guns or like food or anything else, but then having that transition into it being about love and then like, survival and then about like, caring about somebody. I think it could have worked that way as well. But I do like the changes they are making because it makes someone like myself who's played the game, someone like you who's played the game, keeps us on our toes. Yeah. Because we don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's something, it's a little fresh.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
That leads us up to the next scene I want to talk about.
The second part of this conversation.
So now this is Joel still talking to Ellie, but now kind of like what his take is on life. So let's listen.
If you don't think there's hope for the world, why bother going on? I mean, you gotta try, right?
You haven't seen the world, so you don't know. You keep going for family. That's about it.
I'm not family.
No. You're cargo. But I made a promise to Tess. And she was like family.
There's a lot in there.
Yeah. Well, he's just, kind of what we just talked about, just kind of reiterating that to her. That, the whole reason why he does anything is really for family.
Yeah. I see it as not only that is the world to him is not worth saving because obviously he's seen and he's done horrible, horrific things. So he doesn't even want to save the world. The only motivation he has, like we talked about, is just family, survival of the family. Yeah. And then the other thing I took out of it is like, again, Joel's saying that Tess is like family is kind of weak to me, man. It's like, dude, you were with her for almost 2 decades, and obviously you guys were romantically together. Yeah. And you're saying she was like family. To me, I know it's a good thing to say someone is like, oh, he's like family, but I expected him to say something more for Tess. Again, she was like, I never wanted you to feel the way I felt, but she obviously was into him more than, and he's like, to me, he should have said something more than that. You know, like I love Tess, or so, maybe not even, you didn't have to go as far as saying I love Tess, but
could have said that she was family.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way.
I think it was very weak.
I feel the same way.
Tess deserves better than that.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how Joel and Ellie's, relationship develops throughout this season. Yeah. Is if he feels by the end of this season, is if Ellie is she like family or is she family? Because that bond is supposed to grow throughout this entire show.
Yeah, they're supposed to end up being best friends, right?
Yeah. So I wonder if that might actually be a call to something later on. If he actually does actually say you are family, meaning that he wasn't able to do that with Tess because of the emotional block that he got from, his daughter dying in his arms, him not wanting to take on, not allowing himself to love anybody that much because of that person's going to die at some point. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So he doesn't allow himself that with Tess until hopefully down the road of the show, Ellie kind of helps him get that closure and kind of open up the door for more love. Is that deep enough for you?
No, that's good. It's good.
Okay. Let's move on to the next scene. Unless you want to keep talking about the scene?
No, we're good.
It's pretty good. I feel like we kind of
we're going to touch it later on more as the show proceeds.
Well, I hope so.
So.
All right. So let's talk about the next scene. So now we're going to meet Kathleen for the first time. So Kathleen, she's in a container that I'm assuming doubles as a cell for Fedra. And she's talking to a doctor that she's known her entire life who says that he gave birth to her, or he delivered her.
He delivered her.
He didn't give birth to he delivered her. So let's just listen to the scene.
It has to stop.
It has to stop now, you mean?
now that you're in the cell. But before, people dying was okay. When you were safe and protected and ratting on your neighbors to Fedra.
They put a gun to my head.
There. Have I satisfied the necessary conditions for you to talk?
Kathleen, for God's sake. I delivered you. I held you in my hands. I never told him anything about your brother.
But Henry did.
But Henry did.
But Henry did. I was way off, by the way. So I totally forgot that she actually says Henry did.
Yeah.
That she's actually, she's
Revenge.
She's looking for revenge. I think I said when we just watched it on Sunday, that maybe he was like
they're
friend
related,
of the family,
or
like they're
something.
related. So I feel like I'm way off.
It's okay.
I do still think though that they are going to make it so maybe the brother Sam, brother Sam. I do feel like maybe there might be a connection with her and the brother Sam.
Yeah.
Because I think it would make it, because she's talking to him like, because in the beginning of that scene, which we didn't listen to it, but she's naming off all these families and all these names and stuff like that she's looking for. So they obviously were a close community at some point before, I guess them overthrowing Fedra, or her overthrowing Fedra, because she seems like she's the leader of the group.
Yeah, she's the leader of the group.
So she's mad at the doctor because the doctor was ratting on them. She says it, like, you were ratting on everybody, and you're the reason why, maybe things didn't go well.
People got executed. We saw Fedra executing people in episode 1.
Right.
They were hanging people in Boston, so they probably were doing the same in Kansas City.
Right.
Maybe even worse.
Yeah.
So I think that him being a doctor, he probably was very valuable. Doctor's very valuable in that world. So them putting a gun to his head was probably just really a threat, because they're not going to lose a doctor because he's not snitching on somebody, right? But in his defense, gun to his head, he got to tell. So maybe people who are smuggling or people who are leaving, there was obviously, I think that's probably what caused this revolt. Was the harsh way Fedra deals with those kind of things, and we talked about it before.
We did, and it's kind of like so now let's just say her group's in charge. What are they going to do differently that Fedra? So does that mean you're going to be okay with people leaving your quarantine zone and going out
take a nice walk?
Yeah, and then getting infected and coming back without telling anybody, or are you going to have rules that are like so loose that people can do that as long as they come back and say, "Hey, I was gone.
Yeah, I'm clean.
Scan me really fast, and we'll go."
Yeah. So obviously her motivation, we said, is revenge, because Henry snitched on her brother, and her brother got killed through Fedra, and she probably witnessed that. It would be nice to see. Hopefully they show you, what.
I think we'll see flashbacks in the next episode. Yeah.
Did you notice that sign? I had taken a freeze frame, that sign that they looked at. It was a Fedra sign, Federal Disaster Response Agency. Here are your rights while in detention. You're entitled to a lawyer, medical attention, family visit, food, and clothing. All that sounds great. That's that's what it is when you're detention.
Yeah.
So when you're that's prison.
Yeah.
So
that sign was also probably made at the beginning of the pandemic or in the apocalypse. So the rules might have changed a little bit.
You know what? That's an excellent, excellent point. That's probably year 1 or 2, and then it just got worse and worse.
And that's not. That's not a sign that you just go print off of a printer. That was actually a metal sign that they made somewhere.
Yeah.
So you can let's get a little crazy with this. So either the government had anticipated this was going to happen prior to actually, blowing up cities and stuff. So they actually had to order a bunch of these and
these
go,
QC zones are.
We're going to need a QZ zone for every major city.
They're franchises. Remember, they're
franchising them out. It's like Fallout and the shelters and stuff. I don't know if you play that game. So, anyways, they have to make the signs and then they got to deliver them all to these areas first. Or now they've blown up all these places, and hopefully there's like a metal sign shop that didn't get destroyed. So now they got to order 300 or 400 of them. But it's like, there's no money anymore. We're not paying for you, but we'll give you some shelter, and we'll make sure that no one beats you up or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I really like your point about what are they going to do different that you overthrow Fedra.
What would you want them to do different?
Turn on the hot water?
If that's what they're complaining about is hot water, then yeah, then they have some gripes. But if they're complaining about people getting, executed because they're leaving the quarantine zone and then coming back, this isn't something, and I mean, I know how far do you play this, but this isn't something where you get a slap on the wrist or anything like that. You're dealing with people's lives now. This isn't something, life. You know that this is a real thing. You know that it's destroyed the world. Why would you bring that back into a safe zone? Why would you allow that? So,
if you want to leave. Go be a raider. Right. Go on your own. Go be a Bill or Frank, but you're not coming back.
You think after you did it one time, the example had been set. Okay, we obviously we mean business. If you do leave the zone and you come back, or you sneak in without getting tested, we will execute you. And so everybody knows, so nobody does that.
Yeah.
So there's got to be other things going on. Like maybe people do want to leave and they're not letting people leave. Or maybe people want to get in and they're trying to do the proper channels.
Well, they're smuggling things. I mean, like...
But why do you got to smuggle things if you think about it?
Well, the Fedra's probably not providing enough because they're probably counting resources. It's been 20 years already.
Sure.
They're not making too much of new things.
They're looking for a chef that knows how to, make a 5-star meal.
5-star meal.
There's got to be one in the world.
So they have to conserve resources. And, I mean, it's dire. This is dire.
Well, I understand that. I still understand that. But if you're smuggling things in and out, there maybe that's the biggest. Maybe that's the thing that you would do differently than Fedra would do. You'd still have those laws if people leave the quarantine zone, and you still have those laws. If people sneak in, but now maybe you open up the trade channels a little bit. Maybe that's their problem. Like we want the bar of soap that we're getting from Boston, but you're not letting us get the bar of soap from Boston. So now we have to.
That's why.
Now we have to overthrow our government because I want.
Yeah, because that's what Tess was doing with Frank.
Like spring clean.
That's what Tess was doing with Frank, right? They were on the the radio, creating a trade connection.
We didn't explore that enough. So hold on a second, because that's interesting because they do have this, they had that code for the 60s and 70s and 80s of things are good, bad, whatever. Mm-hmm. What were they gathering up to trade at some point?
Well, they mentioned
Bill and Frank. Like, what else are they gathering up? Because if you've been trading,
they
with
have
them
a whole city of stuff that are only 2 people have been using the whole town. They have all of Home Depot.
Sure.
Anything you need at Home Depot.
Right. Yeah.
They still had grocery stores because the 2 of them couldn't eat everything that was left behind from every
Here's
store
a question for you.
In town.
When Joel and Tess went there for the first time,
and
you saw all these other houses that aren't being used.
I know, but you can't impose yourself.
But do you think that came up in a conversation at some point?
No, you can't do it on the first go.
Not the first go, but there's been years later. Hey, we noticed that there's a nice 2-story house across the way with a white picket fence.
But that doesn't help them. That doesn't help
But if you have everything you need in there, why wouldn't it be good to have a person like Joel and Tess to help protect what you have?
But you don't have everything because they need to get the medicine and stuff from the QC zone.
Well, then you could still go on and do... Well...
there's still stuff they needed from the QC zone. That's what made the relationship work. But if they decided to come over, now they don't have access to the stuff from the QC zone. They would have to go and set up another, connection point.
So do you think that Joel and Tess are only trading with Frank and Bill? You don't think they have anybody else they might have met throughout these years that they could trade with as well? Or why couldn't they actually trade with someone else in the QZ? You know what I'm saying? I think only trade when you actually really need something. Because if you have a secure place like that, that's out in nowhere, why wouldn't Bill and Frank, why wouldn't Bill want somebody else to stay there with him?
He didn't. He's a loner. He didn't want anybody.
But after that first time, when he gets shot and you have to here, now I'm going to tell you the code to the place. Why not? Hey, I'm having a hard time, guarding what I have. And now this person that I love, maybe you and Tess can move in across the way and I'll make you meals every so often. I got hot water. I got clean clothes. I've got a Home Depot that no one's using. I'm just saying, there's something there.
We'll double every Thursday night. I see what you're saying, but I don't think Bill thinks like that. And I actually think that maybe that was their main trade route. Was with Bill. I don't think there was anybody else really, because how many other people had a situation like Bill had, right? I think Tess.
Well, there's other scavengers out there that are still trying to like grab
stuff.
Get stuff. Like,
and I think that's what they were doing mostly. I think Joel and Tess, when they leave the QC zone, they're going places to scavenge if Bill and Frank doesn't have it, and then they're coming back to the QC zone to sell it and do things like that.
But even Bill's compound couldn't have been that big where it's included a Home Depot into it.
No,
it was still outside of his compound. So there must have been other people that might have discovered it and still raided it because he didn't have a hold on that. Like even when the people were trying to like, let's just we're going off a deep end here, but even when the raiders came, in the night when he started playing Call of Duty and his Twitch in the middle of the street, you don't think those guys maybe went and found other things first, or maybe said like, "Hey, dude, I got a map here."
Well, we don't know how big
I
this
remember
fence
there was a
was.
Home Depot over here. There was a convenience store. There's all these other things like. Why not go over there? There's no way he had a whole perimeter on that entire place.
No, it's impossible.
I think it's maybe really 4 or 5 houses, neighborhood, like that block or
just
something.
That neighborhood.
Yeah,
because because you saw in that episode he was driving out to the gas to go turn on the gas. He drove. He had the boat in the back to haul everything. So yeah, he couldn't. It was just his neighborhood. So people could have went and said, "Look, this Home Depot is available. Let me just go get some stuff."
It's primed.
Yeah, but
I would think if someone found that Home Depot and then there was no infected around, and there's nobody else around, like there's no one else like there, why not set up shop and kind of like there? Now you got another guy.
It wouldn't work because what about Tommy? At the time, Tommy was there too with them. So you're gonna have to get Tommy a house too.
What are you talking about?
Joel,
you think Tommy was still with him when Joel and Tess met?
Yeah,
Frank and Bill.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Why not?
Why do you think they were?
Because it was like 13 years ago.
No, but I think no, because it was 4. Oh, you know what? Maybe
it was like 13 years ago, bro. Where would he be? he would still be in the QC zone with them.
Why? But at this point, did they ever say that Tommy actually ended up in Boston?
Yeah, that's how come they went to Boston. Remember,
I thought they left after Tommy
convinced Joel to go up to Boston. Remember that they just had that conversation in the car.
Okay.
Yeah. So Tommy was there,
right.
and he said that's how they met Tess.
This is why it takes 2 of us to do this podcast.
All right, we went down a crazy rabbit hole here.
I like playing the what ifs. It's actually more fun sometimes. So
no problem.
The rest of the show, we get to see Kathleen. She goes and they're still looking for Henry and Sam.
Yeah.
They do find like the basement area where we're assuming that the bloaters are going to come in.
Let me ask you this. If this is a revenge piece, why are her followers so, committed to this revenge piece too? It's a personal revenge, unless they were the key, they were the number one snitchers in the whole city.
Right.
That everybody involved, everybody part of the rebellion had a family member or friend that got killed because, Henry was snitching on everybody. Like, why would his group care to hunt them down now? Like, you guys won. You beat Fedra. You took over a city. You made the city quote unquote free. Why are you guys still hunting these guys? Let them be.
I mean, there must have been something else. Hopefully that
we'll find this
there
out,
will be more of an
hopefully.
explanation of that, or there might be a flashback. But there must have been something where you had maybe lines were drawn as far as the civilian world.
Yeah.
And you had one side that wanted to have, more power. They wanted to get rid of Fedra. They wanted to maybe have a trade route. They wanted their Irish Spring soap, whatever the case was. And then you had the other side who liked the law, liked it not getting tampered with. And so they kind of told on them, obviously. And so then people were getting executed, hung in front of them. Yeah. Brothers are getting beaten in prison cells or whatever. And so now all these people that survived have a gripe. Like, I lost my mom, maybe a son.
So they're gonna focus all this gripe after you already killed all the Fedra people, probably burnt them in that scene, that pile of bodies we saw. And you're gonna focus all that anger on a guy and a kid.
This isn't the first time we've seen a post-apocalyptic show or movie. You have to make sure the people that are around you are trustworthy.
Yeah.
So that means you got to clean house. Then you clean house. Now, do you kill them? Maybe not. Do you kick them out? Probably. But
do you hunt them in the streets?
But then those people that you kick out, we've seen this in Walking Dead a bunch of times. You're afraid they're going to come back in numbers. Yeah. So it's best we've already heard this line before. Dead people don't get infected.
Yeah.
So maybe you eliminate that problem. Hopefully it's something more,
And
not
just pure, simple revenge.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully there's more of an explanation than what I'm coming up with that we're going to hear, we're going to see on the next episode. But that does bring up a good point. Yeah,
because you end up if you take it too far as a leader, you can get mutiny on your hands where the people are like, why are we just overthrew this city? Why are we focusing on these two people? Like, can we move on and let's build this better society than that we have? After we got rid of Fedra, why are we still focusing on these two people? Like, let's move on.
Right.
And she's already making suspect leadership decisions. That bloater is bulging out of the ground, and she's so focused on this Henry and Sam that she tells, what's the guy's name? Perry. The actor's name is Pierce.
What is his name? Perry?
He tells him to just board up the house. Don't mention to anybody because she's focused on this singular task.
It is Perry.
It's Perry, right? Yeah. The actor's name is Pierce.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So those are already suspect decisions as a leader because she got a little Captain Ahab going on here. She's only focused on this white whale Henry. We got to go get Henry and Sam.
Yeah,
like, come on.
I mean, that's kind of the reason why I was hoping for maybe there was more behind their relationship besides pure vengeance. Like maybe there is some connection with her and Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe she was Sam's teacher or something like that, or because they were obviously at some point, I'm assuming they were all a close community and they all kind of leaned on each other.
Yes.
Maybe that's even more of a reason why she's so mad at Henry.
So personal.
It is personal because their families were close with each other.
Yeah.
And so maybe she wants to get Sam because, she doesn't blame Sam for what Henry did, but that would also be the ultimate revenge in a way if you take the brother away from him after she kind of blames him for her brother being gone.
Yeah.
It's like a brother swap or I don't know what's happening. But I would like it to be more than just vengeance. I would like there to be something else underneath that.
Well, I got good news for you.
Oh, tell me.
We're recording on Wednesday right now because of the big game, the Super Bowl.
That's not good news.
We're gonna actually enjoy and find out all this information on Friday because they're showing it Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, which is perfect.
Yeah, it's possible.
We only have to wait a couple more days.
Possible our episode might not air till Saturday. I'm just saying. HBO kind of messes up some schedules for some of us, so I can only do this so many times without my wife getting mad at me. But yeah, that is good. We're not gonna have to wait as long.
No.
I'm really hoping that they do add a little bit more to that. I am really hoping for another soft opening.
Yeah. This is perfect for it. You got to give us a little something of the pre revolution Kansas City.
I'm really shocked they didn't start this episode with that. That would have been perfect.
Oh, saved it for the next one. We'll see.
Well, hopefully. I mean, they did the episode prior to that. They dedicated 60% of it, 70% of it to a flashback. So why not?
Why not?
Let's see what happens.
It's not as long as the episode's going to be about the same length as this one. So they got a lot of information to get in there.
Well,
they'll do it.
We're excited about it.
We're almost at the halfway point for the show. Actually, we are technically in the halfway point. How many
episodes are there?
9. So this was 4. Now we're 4.5. I guess we're in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this episode.
Yeah.
This is a decent deep dive. I think we kind of went more in speculation than kind of hard facts on this one, but I like doing that. I kind of feel like we should do that a little bit more. It's the way that they're doing this season, or I guess the way they're doing this show, is making it easier because I thought that we weren't going to be able to do that.
Yeah, because if it was copied the video game exact, we would be like, okay, we know exactly what's happening.
But since they're adding new characters, now we had a backstory with
Kathleen.
With Kathleen, now she's a new character, and now you add in Perry into the mix of the entire thing. So now we kind of speculate where they can go with that. So it's nice.
For those fans of 2.5 Men, Kathleen, aka Rose, the way she did that scene with the gun, that's Rose was kind of crazy like that too.
That was her whole thing on the show, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was a little nutsy. She was a nut job.
All right. Well, thanks again to our Patreon producer, Knight Rider 169. And don't forget, if you guys want to help us out a little bit, maybe head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/rotyourbrainmedia. A little help can help us goes a long way. That's the best way to say it. Also, don't forget our other show still holds up. We're releasing new episodes this week and for the rest of the month, and hopefully for the rest of the year. So check that out. Right now we're doing the Star Wars prequel trilogy.
Yeah, episode 1, 2, and 3.
We're going to see how that holds up as a whole. Doing each one individually was going to be a little weird, so we figured let's just handle the trilogy as itself. And we're bringing in a special guest for that, so we can really nerd out on that episode. So look for that. Yeah, thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.
Awesome. Peace.
Music composed by Kyle Torme. Additional backing music composed by Jason Zaffrey. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Last of Us, a Rot Your Brain podcast. Subscribe to The Last of Us podcast feed at rotyourbrainmedia.com/The Last of Us. Follow us on Twitter at rot_yourbrain and support Rot Your Brain Media and its podcast by being a part of this exciting new and growing community. Visit patreon.com/rotyourbrainmedia.